Hey everyone, I wanted to walk you through this InDesign template that I've put together for your final posters. I thought that it would be a good idea to have you guys put this together as an end screen for your presentations. It's kind of all of the work that you're creating throughout the semester, all on one screen. One of the things that I've learned, and I think you guys have too, is that with the PDF presentations we do at the end of the presentation, the reviewers often spend a lot of time trying to figure out where all your drawings are. And so I thought that having this all on one page would be a really great way to end your presentations. So I have a few notes here and you guys can read them on your own. This is a suggested layout based on the deliverables that we have in our assignment, with a few other things that you might want to think about adding to give more explanation to your concept. So the basics are the site plan, and I would suggest that you put in whichever site plan you think is the most descriptive of your project. Hopefully that will be the rendered or illustrated plan. But this could also be your line work plan with hatches if you are not feeling super confident about your illustrated plan. And then we have the two visualizations, and these can be a combination of analog and digital media. They could be rendered views, they could be Photoshop views, they could be sketches with textures added. It's up to you how you put them together, but they should be atmospheric and represent a garden experience that's multisensorial. And then we have our longitudinal and transverse sections of your gardens. I would advise that you align your longitudinal or your transverse section with your plan, depending on what the orientation of your plan is. Align the long side with the long side of your drawing so that it's easy to relate the plan and section together. Then I have an area down here for planting palette and a materiality palette. You can put that together however you like, but this is just an example. I've used this as a placeholder, but of course your palettes may look a little bit different. And then I also popped in this axonometric that was exploded that I did in one of the tutorials. Derek seemed to really, really like seeing all of the layers pulled apart. And I thought that if you already have an illustrated plan anyways, or even a sketch illustrated plan, this is a really good way to pull everything apart and show it in individual detail. So optionally, you can add this. If you don't want this, you could always expand your planting palette up here or add more context in other drawings if you have them. Then up here we have our context. So I recommend that you do a broader site context so that people know where you are in the world. And of course, all of your drawings are going to have labels on them so that people know where they are. You'll notice that I don't have any scale bars on any of my drawings here. I think that because we want to fit everything on one page, the scale isn't really going to be a factor here. So even though we've asked for plans at a certain scale, you're going to have to size them down to fit in these boxes just so that we have a poster. So don't worry about the scales of your drawings. Just make sure that they retain their proper proportions, but you don't have to place scale bars and all of that other stuff on these, so you can just cut them off. And then I have a few diagrams. These are all of these drawings are just pulled together from various different sources just to try to give you an idea of what could go in. I didn't want to just leave empty boxes. So you could have some site diagrams or strategic moves, your conceptual sketches. Here I have a little area for site photos, your cube diagrams, other explanatory data that you would have found during your site analysis phase. So it could be weather data, shadow studies, all kinds of analysis that you did to come up with your concepts. And then down here, I have a whole area for process sketches and design development. Really do encourage you to add your process sketches to this poster. Guests love to see the process, and it really helps them give you feedback so that they can see the way that you've been thinking about things. And it doesn't matter if these process sketches didn't end up on your site plan. The idea is to see the thought process behind. So even if you have a whole bunch of ideas that you never developed or that never made it onto the final plan or that you totally changed, add those here just so that people can see where you started and where you got to. It will avoid a lot of unnecessary questions about like, did you try this and did you try that and have you thought about this? If it's all on one page and they can see what you've experimented with, it'll be a lot easier for them to focus on the ultimate design. So I'm going to show you a few things in InDesign. As you're probably noticing, you navigate this very much the same as you do in Photoshop and Illustrator. So I press down spacebar to access the pan tool, and then I can just click around to move where I am. To zoom in and out, the command for fitting everything onto the page is Control-0. That will just center your workspace into the page. And if you go to Control-1, that takes you to 100% view. Now you'll see that everything in this view is really pixelated right now. And that's because InDesign quite rightly makes everything a preview image instead of showing you the actual resolution. So if you want to see the actual resolution of your images, you're going to go to View and Overprint Preview. And then it will rasterize and bring up the proper resolution so that you can have a preview of what this will look like when it is printed to PDF. But this does end up making it a lot slower, so I highly recommend that you turn the overprint preview off. Maybe I'll just show you what this workspace is all about. So if you want to change your workspace so that it looks like this one, go up to Window, Workspace, and put it on Typography. I always keep it on typography because that's often what I'm using is just layout and typography in InDesign. I don't really use it for anything else. So once you've set your workspace to typography, you should see all of these palettes over here. These little flyouts give you more information about everything that you're working on. So I have divided up this poster into different layers, and you can see that if you click on the layers flyout up here, all of the images are on the bottom and they're all within this folder here. So if I want to lock it to make sure that nothing gets moved around, that's what I can do. That's very similar to Illustrator. All of my text is on the text layer. Again, I can lock that. And then I have this other layer called annotation. And right now I just have one annotation. It's this little lead line. I recommend that you guys, when you export your drawings, I don't know exactly which way you're going to be producing them, whether you're making them in Illustrator or AutoCAD, but I would recommend exporting them without annotations so that you can make sure those annotations can be added in InDesign for this poster. So you could export two versions, one that makes sense for your presentation as a whole. For example, if you're just going to have a page in your presentation that focuses on this plan, you could have it annotated properly for that. But you would also export an unannotated version, just a blank version that just has the image, so that you can add these annotations in InDesign later and they'll be at a readable scale. I'll show you how to create these lead lines a little bit later. So the other palette that's important to note here is the links palette. And this is every image that you have in your file. I'll just unlock that. Is a link. So basically InDesign, you drop in these images and InDesign automatically keeps track of where they're located. You can see the name and the path down here. So it kind of keeps track of where they are. You see I have this screenshot has like a little missing. So if you run into issues where you have a missing file and you need to relink it, you can go to this relink button right here and then just navigate to wherever that new file is or wherever you've put the file, and InDesign will reset the path so that it shows up again. Now, it's very important that if you have any unlinked or missing links, before you export this as a final PDF, you need to go and fix all of them, because otherwise InDesign will export it as a pixelated image preview. So it'll look like this pixelated image that it shows here rather than the final resolution version. Okay, so once you are finished placing all of your images, and these might be from a whole variety of different folders on your computer, but if you want to make sure that everything gets sort of associated with this file so that you can always keep everything in one place, you can go ahead and use a feature that InDesign has called Package. So I'm going to go to File and then Package. And this is basically going to look for all the links and fonts and images that you have, and it's going to put them in one folder. So I'm just going to click Package, and it's going to save it. That's fine. And I'm going to select a place to do it. I'm just going to put it on my desktop and call it my final poster R1. I always give it a rev number instead of anything else because this can always change and increase. So I'm going to go make sure that fonts, linked graphics, and all of this other stuff is included. You can uncheck IDML. This basically gives you a file that's compatible with earlier versions of InDesign. But if you aren't going to be going backwards in your InDesign or sending this to someone with an earlier version, you can just uncheck that one. This will also create a PDF for you, so you can decide whether you want it to create that or not. I'll just include it just so I have something as a baseline to look at, and just go Package. So it's going to say a bunch of messages. That's fine. There's a whole bunch of different images that have different transparency and blend spaces, and we'll wait for it to create the PDF. And now if I go to my desktop where I saved that folder, I have my final poster R1. Inside, I have the InDesign file, I have a poster layout, and I have, importantly, all of these links. So if I go into links, every single file that I used in this file is linked here. So it's all in one place. And once you have a links folder set up, I recommend that you save any files that you want to add to the links folder so that you can just always go to one folder and add files from there. So that's a really great way to keep your all of your image files organized.